perfect protege. You can go ahead and stand in front of me for this. Actually, beside me.
Oh, look.
I would like all of you to stand up. I said stand. That includes you, McLean. You could use the exercise.
Well, David. Hey, Dare to see you smiling.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Penelope Pink.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
It's another week and another episode down. We are 3 in, and who knows how many to go. This is Mr. Green, and you are listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling podcast as we go through episode by episode the newest season, I guess, of WoW and whatever other little tidbits of wrestling I choose to address at the time. How are you? And thank you for listening and tuning in to the show. Have you enjoyed WoW thus far? I think we've gotten enough, or a couple episodes in, enough for you to get a flavor of whether you like the direction that it's taking, whether you like the talent that's being presented to you, and so on and so forth. Has it done what you expected it to do? Has it delivered the goods so far, or are you still waiting to see if it's going to grow and build upon itself and introduce new things and new themes? Yeah, I had to make sure I pronounced that correctly so I can get the point across. We are going to do a quick rundown of everything that they've had up until this point. But I also, since I decided to sit down before I got in front of the microphone and watch a little bit of wrestling to kind of cleanse my palate, just to see some ladies from some different organizations and different promotions. I have to do that every once in a while. And I want to say, and I may have to do this, weekly, because there's so much great wrestling out there, and I don't want to just not to knock WoW, but I don't want to just ignore the other things that are out there in the world. So I want to bring up the NWA Women's Championship match that took place at NWA 74. That was Max the Impaler against Camille, the reigning NWA Women's Champion. And I'm going to say now, before we go any further, if you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, you should go check it out. It's a nice match. Nothing. It's nothing too fast paced, so they're not all over the place with bing 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 doing high spots and things like that. But it is a nice match, and it does the things that you would expect from the get-go. In this match, you got an established heel and you got an established babyface, and it was David and Goliath, I guess, or Sting versus Vader. That's probably a better comparison, because Sting was never a small guy. He was never a weakling or never short or nothing like that. He was a pretty big dude, but Vader just kind of dwarfed him and then came off like this monster. Well, that's the parallel that you have here in this match. This match comes from, again, NWA 74, the pay-per-view, but what they did is they allowed that particular match to be seen for free, so you can look at it for free right now on their YouTube channel, NWA Power Surge. It is the main event of the show. So if you're looking at it and you might want to skip through everything else just to get to that, but it is the main event of the show right there at the end of like the last 15-20 minutes of the program. So you can check that out. And if you've not seen Camille work, if you've not seen her in action, by and large, she's always been the strong one of the match. She's always been the powerhouse of the match. She's always kind of, towered over or overpowered her opponents, but not this time. Max is a pretty big piece of work, and she turned that little dynamic around, which again I thought was really good, and it was interesting to see that because you don't often get that, and it made it easy to understand regardless to whether you watch them or not. There was a monster in the ring. She wanted to come after the championship. She had a heel manager who was doing heel stuff, and she was doing the monster shtick, and Camille had to fight from underneath. And despite the fact that she would normally win, with some sort of power maneuver or whatnot, she just could not get whatever it is that she was wanting to do. Could not get it done. So, I'm not going to put out any spoilers, but you go ahead and check that out. I think it's well worth the watch. And I may have to go through and pick out just a match of the week or something like that, if I can keep up with it. So anyhow, let's get on to the review, episode 3. And I think now I can say that we have I've got the rhythm of how the show is going to go, at least so far, until they do something that's going to prove me wrong or show differently. It seems like we're going to start off with a recap, which is the same thing that we did with the last season. So we got a recap going here, which is essentially setting up the Beast and Del Rey, showing their feud starting up. We've only seen 2 basic interactions with them. We saw week 1, Del Rey come into the ring and belly to back suplex the Beast. We saw week 2, the Beast comes in and spears Del Rey. So, and they've had one match previously as Del Rey was under her previous name. So I don't know if feud. I guess the feud is bubbling up, so we can go with that. But there isn't a lot of history there. They're trying to create the history. So the only choice that we have here is to watch and see where this is going, because there was nothing in the course of this show that really pushed us any further than what we got right here, which also begs the question, why was it here? I guess they had to do something to get the presence of these 2 individuals onto the show. So that's good television booking. We also get introduced to Lana's new protege, Penelope Pink, which, if you were looking at the roster that was unveiled to the public before the show went on the air, I'm pretty sure that you are, like I, was able to look at that and say, without even seeing this woman, which I have seen on Independent, she operates generally as Marina Tucker. Without having seen this woman, I knew, just like you probably did, that she was going to be attached to Lana Star. There was absolutely zero question in my mind that this is going to happen. Not a big deal. I just, it would be somewhat nice if she got the chance to have a different protege every once in a while. They all seem to have the same theme. And once I saw blonde, snooty chick, I knew that, okay, well, we know where this is going. She'll be hooked up with Lana Star pronto, and that's exactly where it went. So we'll get on to that a little bit later on. As the show begins, we have fans in the Belasco Theater chanting "Women of Wrestling," which is such a awkward chant. I don't know who stood out there and told them to do that. Somebody had to. There's no way that they just sat out there and came up with that on their own. I refuse to believe that until somebody tells me, no, yeah, we came up with it ourselves. Until I hear somebody out of that crowd say that, I'm going to say that they just produced this out of the blue just for the sake of the show. But hey, it is what it is. The first match and second segment, first match is another match in the tag team tournament, which I am sure is going to go all season long. It is Siren and Chainsaw. So Siren has a new tag team partner, and this is her second time entering into a tournament. Last year it was last year. How foolish of me. 2 or 3 years ago, when they did the other tag team tournament, it was her and Holiday. So now she has a new protege, Chainsaw, which again means that Angelique Dante, or whatever her name was, from who her previous manager was, who showed up for all of one episode, is gone. Which, goes back to that thing. They got too many people on the roster, and they never can get all of them in there. And why they hire everybody like that when they only going to show up for one episode and then disappear? I don't know. So anyway, we got Siren and Chainsaw, new team, and who are they going up against but Keita Rush and Steffi Slay's the Bully Busters. I was not particularly happy with the way this match was going, and I will say why. I knew from the get-go, the second that they advertised the Bully Busters a week prior, that the Bully Busters were going to lay on their back and lose. I hated that I was right about that, but I knew I was going to be right. The reason I don't like that is because they've been there long enough at this point that they deserve something. They're probably the longest reigning team. They haven't won any championships or anything like that. But the Bully Busters as a team really have not had any sort of significant program or angle or, I'm not saying they needed to win the championships, but they haven't even had a run against the championships or anything of that sort. They've had other things that were happening around them, and then it was just angles that just kind of disappeared. So at this point, I would have liked to have seen them take the underdog role. Essentially what we had the last tournament with Fire and Adrenaline. There's no reason that the Bully Busters could not have done it, because I'm not expecting Siren and Chainsaw to win. I expect the same thing to happen that always happens. Some babyface team, probably the Tonga Twins, are going to win this thing. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, yes, I did spoil it for you. The Bully Busters went down. I'm sorry if you didn't know that already, but come on, that's not a big surprise. So anyway, this was a showcase for Chainsaw, more or less. It started off with Steffi Slays and Siren, the voodoo doll, and after one drop kick, she tags out the Chainsaw. I will say, and I know I said this when we were introducing the talents of the show, if there's anybody who needed an outfit that only had like one leg or a bare leg to show, it's probably Chainsaw, because she's got one nice ass chainsaw on her thigh that's been tattooed there. And if you're willing to do that, then you might as well you got to show it off. So you got to give her credit for that much. But yes, this was a showcase for Chainsaw. They're making her out essentially to be Siren's monster. Like I said, Siren takes a drop kick. She goes down immediately, rolls over, tags in the Chainsaw, and then from that point out, it is essentially Chainsaw whooping, the Bully Busters around, minus a maneuver or two. She more or less stays in, beats up Steffi Slays. Steffi Slays is able to get out. Rush tags in. She gets beaten up too. This is a glorified squash match. The Busters lose again, and it wasn't even competitive. Again, the Bully Busters at this point, because I believe they were put together as a team, the first attempt to rekindle WoW, and that was back in 2014, I believe, somewhere around there. So you got these two who have been a team of sorts. I mean, they haven't been that way all the time, but they've been a team mostly within the WoW universe. At this stage, Give them some. They need some sort of credibility underneath them, not just to be the team that does the job and takes the loss for everybody else. They should at least get one good run at attempting to get the tag team championship, which is another reason why I dislike having a tournament that runs all season long all over again. You know, that this could be the time that the angle could go behind somebody else. They could have decided a new set of tag team champions inside of 2-3 weeks and been done and moved on. But I guess we got to fill the airtime, so we have that. At the end of this match, we have Siren, who speaks for Chainsaw, who apparently does not speak English, so she only grunts and groans. David McClain comes into the ring to host this interview. I've never had any issue or any doubt at the verbal ability of Siren, a.k.a. Nina Monet, for those of you that may know her outside of WoW. I've never, ever, ever had any doubt at her ability to get on a microphone and speak. She's been good at it from the day that I've met her, and she's good at it now. So there was no surprise here, but the message more or less is that I have a new partner now who can take me to the top. That's essentially what we got out of that. It's not verbatim, but that's basically what we got from this. Before I go any further, I want to take a second to address. This sounds like an ongoing thing because somebody's always asking, where can I see WoW? Where can I see WoW? And remember, folks, it is a syndicated show. It does not air on CBS. And I think some people are lost and shuffle with that. It does not air on CBS. It airs in syndication on CBS affiliated networks. That being CW networks primarily, but you might get it on is it MeTV, MyTV, and some independent stations across the country. You will have to check your listings because I have seen that the program starts in various time slots, mostly at 11 p.m., but I've seen some as early as 10 and as late as 1. So you have to check that for your particular area. Just, scan through and look it up. Now, I know that's going to be hard for some people because some people like to get out on Saturday night and they're not thinking about TV. Or there might be other things on television that you're competing against and you might not want to look at hit your DVR or something. I don't know. Another thing is that at some markets, it airs twice. I've found through some CBS connections that across the country, it does air on Saturday night, and that's the night that is mostly promoted, but it does do a re-air on Sunday nights in some markets. So again, you would have to check and see where it is and when it is. So if Saturday night's not a good night for you, you might be catching it on a Sunday night. So there you go. That's my public service announcement for those of you that are leaving comments or sending messages or whatever, asking about where can I see it. Segment 3 sets up for the Disiplinarian and Samantha Smart's return. That goes into the segment 4, which is a vignette, which is recapping the history of the Disiplinarian inside of WoW. Going about her being a disciplinarian, being a teacher, which is her legitimate job. Of course, I'm sure she doesn't walk around with a 3-inch thick paddle beating kids black and blue, but that for TV it makes a good weapon. Although I don't understand why they never use that weapon instead of that yardstick. That doesn't make any sense. Like if I really wanted to do some damage to somebody, I would take the paddle, not the yardstick. But, who am I? What do I know? So anyway, they show her vignette about what she does and how she's been out disciplining kids and that's what she wants out of life, discipline. And I also get into her temper. They show clips of her losing her temper in the middle of these matches. And, of course, They're not going to recap the win-loss record out of her, but they do allude to the fact that her temper has worked against her more often than not, and that Samantha Smart has come along to help her remain calm during the course of her matches. And so she is the yin to her yang. Now, the first thing that I noticed when I looked at this is it almost completely ignores the beginning history of Samantha Smart wanting to separate herself from just being a manager. Remember the last time in the unaired seasons of WoW, the last time we saw Samantha Smart probably was the best performance in the universe of WoW that the Disiplinarian had. She was in a glorified handicap match, and she was taking on the two while Samantha Smart threw 90% of it was out on the apron. And then once, I forget who it was, I think Chantilla Chella, which surprisingly enough, because this is who they got tonight. Once she got put down, Smart tagged herself in, and then she hooked her into a cradle suplex. Some people call it a perfect plex. And she won the match, and then she made some speech and like, hey, I'd show you how to, the winning's not that difficult, blah, 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 blah. So that was where we left off with that. And I want to say that was somewhere around episode 27 or something like that. You'd have to look back through. But the end result is that was ignored. Like, it wasn't brought up. It wasn't brought up, this idea that I want to wrestle now, or I want to be in the ring, or I can still show you how to win. That wasn't even a remote thought. It was just the Disiplinarian with Samantha Smart in the corner taking on Chantilla Chella, the Walking Music Fest, which I just keep coming back to that name. Why on earth would you name somebody after a music festival? It's ridiculous. Just be Ray Lynn. They should just let her be Ray Lynn. Or give her a different name or something. But yeah, just it is, if there ever was a time where it reminds me of the WWE back in 92, where you had guys that was talking about, hey, the occupation was more important than the wrestling, is when I see somebody like Chella. It's like the occupation is more important than the wrestler. I have no idea how that connects to her. I don't know what good it does. She just walks around dancing all the time and with a cloak or whatever cape she has, which she threw into, well, I can't say into the crowd. Let me rephrase. She threw at the announce desk for David McLean, who caught it and had one of the assistants put it on his shoulder, so he decided to dance around for a little while and look silly on camera. Yes, he was the picture of hip and cool. So it was a little over the top for me. That's all I can really say for that. That little scene was a little over the top. There's no point getting into this match. It was rinse and repeat. The same thing that I said about the Bullet Busters, I say the same thing about the Disiplinarian. Because unfortunately, if you check the record, it is not a strong record. And I know, hey, it's television, but that's the thing with WoW. It's like with it being a taped environment, crowd response means little to nothing. Now, once they decide that this person's going to be our person, then you're pretty much in a corner. If you're the chosen jobber, or you're the chosen person that's going to go out there and take the loss, or you're the one that's going to make the opponent look good, I mean, somebody has to do it. That's part of the job. That's wrestling. Everybody can't win. It's just not the way it goes. So I'm not saying that they're wrong to do it, but it feels like there's no opportunity to get out of it either. It's like once you're picked for that, you just pick for that. So Chella wins, and I have to rewind this for a little bit. What happened before she won is that the Disiplinarian grabs Chantilla Chella. God, I can't even say it. Then she grabs Chantilla Chella, Cat walks over to the ropes where Samantha Smart gets up on the apron, which does not seem all that smart that a manager would blatantly look to try to hit their opponent right in front of the referee. But this is what they were attempting to do. And this is also where these camera angles work against the show. Yes, having close-ups looks more dynamic. And, it makes for nice angles and good facials and things like that. But it also shows whatever minor flaw would happen on a hard cam is magnified when you got it on a close-up. And so when Chella moves out of the way, it just looks like she didn't have to struggle into, like she just literally took a step and she was free. And I think that camera angle works against them in that regard because it's right there. And it didn't do them any favors to make it look like she was trying her best to hold her. Chella moves. Smart stops herself from nailing her protege or her charge or her wrestler with the yardstick, which, again, don't think the yardstick should be the weapon of choice here. I know she's supposed to be smart. She's not a teacher. I don't know why she's married to the yardstick. The paddle should be the thing. You can believe that you can knock somebody out with that thing. But she moves. They stop each other. Chella pushes the disciplinarian to Smart. Smart takes the bump. She goes down to the floor. Spinning heel kick, side of the head. Disciplinary goes down 1, 2, 3, and Chella wins. So there we have that. The next thing that we have following this match is the advertisement for next week's tag match showing the Tonga twins who advanced over Chantilla Chella and the debuting Randy Rara into the second round, and now they're saying Princess Ozzy and Tiki. What? Let me slow down and try to get the name right. Chamorro, I think that's how I do it. They will be taking them on in the second round of the tournament, and I wrote in my notes when I saw this commercial, how are they taking them on in the second round of this tournament? They haven't even teamed up yet. This is the first time that we even seen Tiki. So she can't be in the second round. It's an impossibility. Are they getting a bye for some reason for a team that's never even remotely teamed up with somebody who'd never even been on the show? How is this taking place? Why is this taking place? This doesn't make any sense. It is the same thing that happened when they had the tournament the first time, is that we're never going to show you the brackets, and then we'll just recycle people in and out of this thing as we see fit. I have no idea why these two will be paired off and then meet against the Tonga twins in the second round of this tag team tournament. If it is rounds, we have no idea. We don't know. They are not unveiling anything. But while it's not above saying things on air and doing something different, so I'm going to leave that to when it actually airs next week to see whether they misspoke or they actually putting them in the tournament. Are they going to explain how they got into the tournament or whatever the case may be, because something needs to be at least said about it. Because the fact that these two are in it and in a second round match against a team that's already advanced just seems somewhat silly to me. And it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me at all if one of these teams that got bumped out already magically shows back up in a second or third round just because they want to. But we will find out as that goes on. So I forget which segment I'm on now. I think I'm on segment 5. No, I'm beyond segment 5. Segment 7. We have another vignette, which apparently I'm just going to assume at this point is a weekly thing. This is just something that's just part of the program now as we introduce every wild superhero that is being, that is new to the program or being drafted or however you want to call it. This would be Amber Rodriguez. I think that's her name on the circuit. I keep wanting to say Amanda, but I think that's wrong. Anyway, on the show, she's Commander Sahara Spars. And I will say this. I am surprised that they acknowledged her pro wrestling background or allowed that to be on the air, because there are times when Wild just kind of exists in a world of his own and doesn't acknowledge anything outside of his own borders. But no, they acknowledged it, and they acknowledged her background. They gave her a lot of time to speak and talk, and it's another emotional profile piece. And it all is a good piece. Don't get me wrong. It's a good profile piece. And if you haven't seen it, they'll upload it onto their YouTube channel eventually. And by the way, I know I said I would address this in one of the other episodes or other podcasts. Even if you are unable to watch the show, you can probably see every match per show on their YouTube channel, because they upload all of the matches. It might be out of order from what I'm talking about, but they'll be there, I would say, at least by Wednesday. You can probably see everything that aired, the profile pieces, the matches, pretty much anything other than the commercials. You just have to kind of go click it around, and you can get that. So back to the vignette. Well-produced stuff. The vignettes there are generally well-produced. My concern with this is that it's week 3, and we've had 3 of these in a row. And there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. And, it is getting to be where the special is starting to come off, at least for me. I don't need to see it every week. It's good to see it. It is done well. But I do not need to see it every week. I don't need to see every week somebody, I was raised here, I did this, I did that. I had to overcome this obstacle, and, life was tough, and then I became a wild wrestler. The path, it's varied, but the same at the same time. It's just, it needs a little breathing room between that for me to feel for these people. If there had been some time, maybe, down the line that did, to get to Spars or whatever we want to call her on the show, and then have that profile piece or whatever the case may be, and that might give it a little bit more oomph behind it. But when I'm getting it as just part of the show all the time, it feels like it's taking something away from what could or should be a special moment. I can't really put it any different than that. It is a well done piece visually. It's well constructed. I'm just concerned that it's going to keep coming and coming and coming, and it's going to be basically the same information out of a different mouth every week. I don't know how they happen to do it, but it just feels like that's the way it's going. I wanted to do this. I was raised here. Here's the obstacle I had to overcome. Now I'm a wild superstar. It seems like in that order, that is the way that these vignettes come off. And everybody doesn't need to give their sob story out there. I'm sorry, that sounds mean. It doesn't. I don't mean it to come off like that. It sounds worse than what I intended to. But everybody does not need to put their sob story on TV. Not all the time. And if you're going to do it, get something out of it. It can't be a special moment of, wow, they overcame this and that, if everybody has it. I got to use the cornet analogy. If you got a room full of 7-foot guys, who's the giant here? If you've got everybody who overcame the obstacle, who's the tough person that overcame the obstacle? Everybody's overcoming them. I get it, but it's one thing I wish they would just minimize, and And I don't want to discount anybody's path or their journey or their story that got them to this point. But at some portion of producing the show, you got to decide hey, this story is interesting. Let's hitch our wagons to this and let's go. Because, it's like you start feeling for this one person. Let's say the young lady in the first week. What's her name? Leah McCoy, who had a great story on camera. And I can really see them putting something behind her and let's give her a path to the championship, give her some wins and this, that, and the other. And going back to the story every once in a while or readdressing the story every once in a while. But what's going to make her any different than anybody else that has already had two other people that had similar stories? And what's going to happen the next couple of weeks? Who's next? Who's going to be the next person that's going to say, well, that this happened and that happened and it was a hard time and then, hey, I overcame it and here I am. I don't think everybody needs to put their story on camera all the time, every episode. It buries the people that came before you and it doesn't make it special anymore. segment 8, Gigi Gianni and Sahara Spars. Now, I will say one of the things that I've always gotten on them about was we go through these vignettes and then they go out there and be beaten into a pulp or something like that, which kind of defeated the purpose of it. This didn't happen this time. We had Sahara Spars, and she was treated like a star here, and she got the star treatment. Gianni, also her debut, but I guess, hey, you got to have a winner, you got to have a loser. Spars establishes herself as the babyface. Good. There have been, with these first two episodes, we've had a couple of people that just walked out there and just started doing their stuff without any rhyme or reason as to, are we cheering for you or not? It's easy for somebody like Siren and Chainsaw because their presence dictated that you're booing for them. Also, Siren already has a history with the company. So, if you are a longtime viewer, that you're booing for her until they do or say something different. With these two, they're being introduced for the first time. And it is very much like what you get at an independent wrestling show. At those shows, those wrestlers, from the time they walk through the curtain to the time they get in the ring, have to establish to an audience whether you are cheering for me or not. That is the hill that they have to climb when they are coming out at an indie show, because independent shows are disjointed. Sometimes fans don't follow it. Sometimes they don't know who you are. Well, that's the same thing here. We don't know who these people are, aside from the fact that we just got a vignette that in theory would have made her babyface. But we got the same thing with BK Rhythm, and then she came out there and healed on the crowd. So it is good that Spars, and I will address her as her wild name, it is good that she came out and she put herself into the position of being the face, which immediately makes Gianni the heel. So, Spars was pretty much in control until she turned her back on her opponent for some reason. I don't know. She turned her back on her, and then she got up on the ropes. And this probably is an editing error, because I would imagine she was going up there either to wave to the crowd or get ready to do a move, but it came off slow. And maybe it's me, but there are people that are working in that company that I know are capable of fantastic in-ring work, but it just seems like they're slowing down for the camera. Like, hey, just take it down a notch or whatever the case would be. And I'm not saying they need to be at 100 miles an hour, but they don't necessarily need to make it blatantly obvious that I'm waiting on somebody to do something either. So she turns around, she gets on the second rope looking at the crowd, and then Gianni gets up and kicks her feet out from underneath her and takes over. Like I said, she turned her back on her for some reason. Somewhere in there, Gianni nails a running power slam, gets close, but no cigar, didn't get the win. Despite the fact that she had that, she loses to Spars via a playmaker. And if you've ever watched MVP do his little maneuver where he grabs your arm and hooks his leg over their neck and head with a kind of spinning motion, almost like a neck breaker with their leg and thigh, that was the move. She popped her, boom, 1, 2, 3. Spars gets the win. Yay, everybody's happy in the world. So we moved in from that, and we go now to a preview for Lana Star and Penelope Pink. Penelope Pink. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is what I was talking about when I said I just wish they would change up the names just a bit. Just a little bit. Pink is the next in line of a long line of Lana Star clones and proteges. If you have watched WoW for any number of years or when they produce themselves, she follows in the footsteps of Patty Pizzazz and Holly Meow and Amber O'Neil and Faith Delinus and Chrissy Vane. And I guess if you want to include the tag team of O'Neil and Vane, Team Blondage. It is copy and paste for anybody that is hooked up with Lana. Is snotty blonde girl, wear pink so you can fit in with me. And that's usually it. I mean, yeah, you got Beverly Hills Babe, which I think she did like blue and silver, but the point being is that they all pretty much fall in line of the Lana Star template, which is why a Penelope Pink being hooked up with her during the show was not a surprise at all. So we get this vignette where Pink introduces herself. Now, I will say this. The difference between this interview and the Spars interview is that this came off as Penelope Pink talking rather than the person behind it. And that was so refreshing. It was so much better. Not that the Spars vignette was bad, again, but she was... The purposes were different. You know, the purpose behind Spars vignette was to, you know, hey, this is who I am. Like I said, this is what I overcame, and so on and so forth. Nothing bad with it, but Pink was not doing that, which is, like I say, it was a breath of fresh air, because I was like, man, another one of these? I don't want to see another one of these. But she went the opposite route. She was just being a snot, which is what she was supposed to be, telling the world how good she is. And, you know, basically, I'm good and you're lucky to see me. Now, that's not, you know, that's not verbatim what she said, but that's essentially what you got. And Lana was there to back up that claim. They went to go see Mark Rossier, who was an agent. I guess he allowed them to come into his office and speak with him and put him on camera. And I guess this is where you have those Hollywood connections. Like, let's call in some favors. Hey, can I come in there? So they did that. And it shows her signing with the agency and establishing her goal to become the WoW champion. I got nothing to say about that. That is exactly where she should be. Now, I don't necessarily like the name. You know, it sounds like it belongs in cartoon land, but, you know, outside of that, it is everything it should be. I am a star, and you people should treat me as such. Penelope, that is so hard just to say Penelope. Not that it's hard to pronounce. It's just doesn't roll off the tongue well. Anyway, so Penelope, she comes off to me like she could be a top heel for the company. That given enough time, she could be their number one heel. of course, we have to see the Beast and Reina Del Rey run their course, or somehow insert Penelope into that in order to see that take place. But there should be no position for her besides being main event or semi-main event or somewhere thereabouts. She should be somewhere up in that echelon. Now, what would be nice is if they hook her up with her old teammates from Florida, the Carlson twins, which, again, I'm not even sure if their babyface is a heel because they never really established that when they was up against the heavy metal sisters. But Miami Sweet Heat and Penelope Pink certainly could hook up together. They seem like they would belong in the same faction. Although WoW doesn't really do factions so much, so that's kind of a far cry fantasy booking, if we want to call it that. So we got the next episode clip that they do just to advertise the tag team tournament that I complained about earlier, and then we go into the main event. Penelope Pink with her manager, Lana Star, taking on Vivian Rivera. Now, Lana and Penelope, I think it's important to point out how Lana has improved over the years. She certainly does not have as much experience as, say, I don't know, your average wrestling manager, your average indie manager, because she doesn't do it that much. But I get the impression that she either has somebody that say, hey, why don't you try this or do that, or she's starting to study it or whatever. Whatever reasons that she's gotten better, bravo to her. She's gotten better. She is a much better talker. She's more animated at ringside. She's put in the effort into being a heel manager, which again makes it easy for her wrestler. It makes it easy for the audience too, because the match now goes from just being something that is absolutely cold to having a little bit of, little oomph onto it, because now the people know that, all right, well, we're supposed to cheer this person and boo this person, which you're looking for when you go to these matches. You're looking for that. You're looking to see, who I can put my efforts behind and want to see win. I mean, yeah, it's still somewhat cold because there's no goal at the end. But they take off the chills, so to speak, because they give the fans, both in the audience and on TV, something to get behind. And it makes it, it makes it easier for Riviera, because she didn't have to work that hard to get them to cheer for her. Because at that point, they just want to see Penelope lose. And I don't want to say it doesn't matter who walks into the ring at that point, but it makes it fair game for the audience to be like, yeah, let's root for her. So Riviera comes out. Oh, wait. I forgot. Lana gives her spiel on the microphone, and she still does the Lana shtick. She's like, hey, why don't you come up here and stand next to me? On second thought, let me stand in front because you're still, my working for me, or again, not verbatim, but that's basically what it comes out to, and it sounds good, because it sounds like something that a Lana Star would say and do, like, hey, yeah, you should come up here and you should be by my side because you're with me. But then the ego kicks in, like, on second thought, why don't you just stand behind me with just a little bit. So the pairing of Pink and Star is seemingly working. I mean, it's day one. It's the first time we've seen them on the air. It seems like a natural fit, like a hand in a glove. What other cliches you'd like to throw in there. I didn't have anything bad to say about this. it made me interested in seeing the pairing of them go further. I wish that they did backstage interviews so that we could see them interact more. Like have somebody back there with the microphone and let's talk to Lana and let's talk to Penelope and see where, these two are going, what their goals are, and have them do their shtick. The more that they get the chance to get in front of a camera and a microphone and do the things that they're, trying to do, the better they will be. And the better they'll be for the company. So we've got Rivera, who this is her return to the ring. She was on the first episode. We really have not seen or heard anything about Rivera. She came out and defeated BK Rhythm, despite the fact that BK Rhythm had the big, opening video and this is where I'm from and, I like music and hip hop and so on and so forth. We haven't heard Rivera say one word. We don't know anything about her. We not behind the person or the persona in the ring, either one. We don't know either way about that. So again, having somebody backstage would be nice with the microphone, like, hey, let's get a little word with you or something. But that isn't happening. Pink continued to do what she needed to do to make sure the people knew that she was a heel. That's the important part. I'm not going to, I can't go through the play-by-play and all that stuff like that, but I will give it this, that at some point in the match, you got Lana who got involved, which again, your job as a manager, interfere, distract, pass weapons, take a bump. Those are your 4 primary goals. Well, maybe not take a bump as a goal, but those are your 4 primary jobs when you are a manager. And she was animated, got into it with the crowd. She interfered, got a hold of Rivera's leg, which was just enough of a distraction, and stopped her from doing whatever it was that she was attempting to do to Penelope, which gave her the turnaround where Pink was able to put her down, give a running start, and slide in with a knee, which I guess they're going to call the pink eye, or, knocks her out. 1, 2, 3. Rivera's down. Penelope Pink wins. I'm getting ahead of myself. I was about to say wins the championship. Wins the match. She wins the match. So there we have it. In the main event, you've got Penelope Pink. She comes off. She wins her first matchup in WoW, which I guess is it shouldn't be surprising, but it is a little bit surprising to me. So there we have it. That was another episode of WoW. This one was better than last week's, I think. Last week was a pretty average episode. Didn't have a lot of oomph behind it, and the only thing that really carried it was the fact that you had Jessie Jones in there doing her thing. Here, you had a couple of things that kind of pushed that along. One, you had the reintroduction of Siren and her new charged chainsaw, and she got to get on the microphone in a ring in front of people and express her goals and what she was trying to do. Easy peasy. You had Spars, who came out and I guess would be considered the top babyface of this entire episode because they gave her the kind of the heroes thing. Even though the match was it was a cold match, but she did, give the fans what they were looking for in that she came out and she was very well liked and easy to like. Then we get down to the main event. We got Pink, and she and Lana did an outstanding job in being what they were supposed to be, main event players. So, it's a thumbs up show. I didn't overlook the Bully Busters thing. Like I said, that was a little bit of a squash, not really all that much to it. The Disiplinarian and Chantilla Chella was another cold match, even though they were reestablishing the Disiplinarian. They reestablished her to a loss. So, what can you really say and do about that? The best parts of this show was the main event. It was Penelope Pink and Vivian Rivera. I have to give her dance partner some credit too. You know, she held her own in that ring. Don't really know all that much about her, but she did a fine job in there. Again, you wish you knew a little bit more, and that they don't have a lot of airtime. You know, they got to squeeze a lot of people inside of an hour. And I know the matches are typically pretty short. They're usually about 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes long on the average, and then they're done. You know, there's not a lot of matches that go running off through commercial breaks, and wow. But again, I wish we got some other type of segment that would do this. Maybe not even on the TV show. I mean, look, you got social media, you got Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. You know, just somebody backstage to do the whole hey Mean Gene bit. That wouldn't be so bad. Another thing I wanted to say before I finished up on the show. I mean, this is just an observation, but if you ever look up Carol Burnett Gone with the Wind sketch. She's wearing this dress that's literally made from a curtain rod. I'm not trying to take shots at anybody, but when I look at the ring announcer's dress, I was like, man, I tell you, that thing looks like it just came directly off of a curtain rod. Even with the shoulder pads, I mean, I'm not saying she looks bad or anything, but yeah, just the make of it. See, that's my problem. I've seen so much television, and everything reminds me of something else, and that certainly reminds me of that. You can Google it, and maybe you can find it, and then it's not the color, it's not the makeup. Just talking about the shape of the outfit. That's all. So we'll leave it at that. I'll close on that regard. So that was it. That was WoW episode 3. Maybe a strong B. Maybe a strong B as far as a rating is concerned. And speaking of ratings, I've been going through the syndicated ratings for the Nielsen's. I cannot find WoW anywhere. I have been looking to see. I'm wondering how well they're doing, because that is going to be my major concern. I know on paper there's no reason for them to be canceled at this point because they're not at a Access TV or anything like that, but there's always a little bit of concern as it relates to what windows they may have to come back, because I don't want to see them do this all over again where they take off another 2 years and, hey, we were revamping it, guys. I don't want to see that happen again. I would rather see them just keep pushing this thing through. I really would see them not be taking breaks off at all, but, that's just me. Hey, I'm an old school wrestling guy, and I was always raised under the idea that wrestling had no off season, but apparently, that's a little bit different for a while. So, I would like to see that. I would like to know what kind of ratings they have. I've been, checking through, but I have not been able to find any news on them as it is. I know the Nielsen's aren't completely accurate. I mean, it's just kind of a numbers game with who has the boxes, and then they average it out based on that. But it still carries some weight. I think even though the company is looking to get accredited again so they can have some standards behind it, the ratings do carry something as far as the advertisers are concerned, and they want to say, hey, look, we want to charge you this much and that much. So it'd be interesting to see if I can find it. If anybody out there knows where you can find those ratings, tell me or drop it in the comments or shoot me a direct mail, mrgreen75@hotmail.com. I'll get it from there. Or you can go right to the website, wpnwrestling.com, hit the contact button, and that'll shoot whatever messages that you may have over to me. Speaking of that, I will use this as the last thing. I did get a message from a listener who was asking what I felt about WoW's championship history, kind of where it ranked in the, I guess, the landscape of women's titles currently. And that's really difficult for me to say. I mean, as I was telling them, I was like, WoW doesn't have enough of a lineage underneath it for the championship for me to justifiably compare it to anything else that you see on television right now. Like the Knockouts Championship technically was created about 4 years after WoW was branded and created, but it's got like maybe 20 times the amount of championship reigns and turnovers and matches because it was a nonstop thing. AEW is a little newer, but their women's division isn't all that good. I mean, they got some really talented people there, but if I were going to go, with it right now, there's more consistency with WoW than it is with AEW because they get lost in the shuffle. But on the other side of that, they have a larger platform where their championship gets shown off more. And they get to see it on pay-per-view and on national television like TNT and TBS. So, that they have more exposure and they've had more matches that are probably going to get considered, classics or get roped around to how good the talent is and so on and so forth. Same thing with the NWA Championship. I talked about that at the beginning of the show. There's decades on that belt. And even though they've had major hiatuses, I mean, that belt been on ice for years at one point. But, now that is under the Lighting One era, the Billy Corgan era, they've tried to reestablish it and rehabilitate it. And you can go on and on and on with a lot of those. And that's largely the reason why I don't know if that is a fair question or not, because if I were going to base it solely off of what we know about WoW today, it couldn't rank against them. So, I mean, the only thing that makes it different is that it's all women's promotion rather than a division. And they have a lot more people in there, but again, I can almost guarantee that by the time this season ends, somebody is going to show up one time and then they'll, really not be seen again. They're going to be lost in the shuffle, just like they're lost in the shuffle in AEW. There's a pro and there's a con to having massive amounts of people there, because when you got massive amounts of people, you always have somebody that you can call on. And in a live television environment, that's probably great. But when you're a taped television environment and you only have an hour, that's a lot to squeeze in, and that's hard. That's difficult, and you don't even have the time to have championship matches repeatedly. They've had one this season, and it's against another WoW original. It was against that Gambino young lady, which was more or less a squash. And the championship history is a little muddy. I mean, there's no nice way that you could put that. It's a little muddy just based on the massive amounts of hiatuses that they've had over and over and over again. So you'd have a champion and then you disappear, and then you have a phantom switch, and then you have a turn, and then they hold it for 1,000 days, and then they come back, and it's hard to put that on the same level as the other ones. Like even the worst of, well, I can't say the worst, even the ones that had pre-taped turnovers outside of WoW. I mean, even those championship turnovers that took place pre-taped, the acknowledgement of that pre-taped turnover probably happened inside of 2 weeks, maybe a month. With WoW, you have championship turnovers that weren't acknowledged for years. I mean, they might have won it in 2014, but it wasn't brought up or shown to the public where it was acknowledged until 2 years later. So again, it's tough to really put that on the same playing field. I will say, to give it a fair shake, let's get beyond 2 seasons of WoW. Let's get beyond 2 seasons of WoW to see where they're going and how this works out and how it irons out between both the singular championship and the tag team championships. Both of those things need to be addressed and shown on television and utilized, and then we can revisit where it kind of sits amongst the ladies. And if you want to go a step further, who amongst them really becomes a star based on that? Because largely speaking, when we have a big platform, the wrestler who gets to be the champion becomes a bigger star based on that. And now that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to turn around and be like The Rock and, start to kick you off a movie career all of a sudden. But, you get to go do more profile things, more radio appearances, more TV appearances, personal shots. You could probably get more invitations to do more matches, which I know WoW is probably, or at least most of the champions will never do. You probably get feelers out there to see whether you're interested in coming into their location. I mean that's just the world that we live in. When you're in a smaller company, some of those bigger companies may be watching to see, all right, hey, you know what? We want to get this person. They built up a name for themselves, and we think it'd be great if we bring them in and do something with them. I mean, look at NXT. They've packed out buildings. Well, NXT, the original version, they packed out buildings, 15,000 seat buildings with people who were only really known through the independents and the wrestling community, and they would blow the roof off the place when they saw their name pop up on the screen or something like that, because the community was tight, and those people became stars either based on the work that they did wherever they were at, or them being the champion, or a combination of the two. So that's what I would like to see. I was like, we'll see if that championship actually makes some stars, and whether they can get some classic matches, and what'll happen inside these next 2 seasons or 2 years if they make it that far. That's a roundabout, long-winded answer. And with that, I think we will bring this episode to a close. We'll keep our eyes open, and I hope that I am somehow incorrect about this tag team tournament, that they do address it, and that they don't have this phantom second round start taking place with somebody who didn't even do a first round match. But we will see. And with that, folks, this is the Rights and Wrongs, a pro wrestling podcast going through WoW one episode at a time. If you've missed any of the prior episodes, including the unaired season, which I have reviewed in full from his first unaired episode right down to the last, you can go onto our website, WPNWrestling.com, and you can pick that up, and you can download and listen to any one, or download or stream any one of them. You can also hear, of course, these new ones that are going up as I am doing this right now. You can get a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week stream of wrestling right there on our page. If you want to get some different wrestling, or if you want to see some of the WoW superheroes before they were WoW superheroes, you might get lucky and go through that. Or if you just want to pick them out of the channel lineup right there on YouTube, then you can go to Women's Pro Wrestling Network, and you can go right down the list all the way back down to 2013. And you can find the likes of young ladies like Nina Monet, like Harlow O'Hara. Well, I was going to say some of you probably don't know, like Pandora. You don't know her. But others, Crystal Rose, Dimension Rose, now known as the Woad, Cat Spencer, Brooklyn Creed, others, so on and so forth. Lots and lots and lots of great wrestling content, podcasts, video gameplay, and more Just go to WPN Wrestling. It is WPNWrestling.com. It is the nexus for all things with the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. And with that, I will now leave you and hope that whatever questions, feel free to hit me up. Go to the contact page or go directly to the email, mrgreen75@hotmail.com. And remember, folks, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.